This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Transcend in Life. I'm really excited today. This guy, I guess the word I would use is super positive. He just helps people with their mindset. Jeremy Todd delivers million-dollar motivation, inspiration, and success strategies for the entrepreneur, manager, business owner, and salesperson. Learn to overcome fear, failure, and adversity by developing a new mindset. The man of a million talents hosts this wonderful foray into the positive side of pretty much anything. He has the ability to take any great story, no matter the spectrum, and have the listener hear it through a new perspective. Brother, I love the message. How are you doing today, man?
I'm feeling like $1,000,000. It's beautiful. I'm in northern Indiana, so anytime you get a day when it's sunny and no rain, hey man, I'm all good, brother. I can't go wrong now. You know what I'm saying?
I definitely know what you're saying, man. And I have to say, it doesn't matter if it was raining, if it was snowing. You have this perspective on life that I think is infectious. I think it's something more people could use, and that is the glass is always half full, if not completely full with you. Is that just something you've learned? Where does that come from, man?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, hey, thank you for letting me be on your show. I love your show. And I just love the name of it, Transcend in Life. I mean, there's so many things in my life that I've struggled with as a kid and really as an adult, man. When the times are super, super tough and you think the whole world is over, man, I'm never going to make it out of this. This is horrible. But you keep transcending, you keep moving up, you keep changing your perspective. And I'm just very grateful. I think that's what it boils down to is I am one of the most grateful people around. I've got 3 beautiful, healthy children. I've got a roof over my head, for Christ's sake. And with all the craziness going on right now and, politics and COVID-19 and I mean, all the, all racial implications, Black Lives Matter, all this stuff that's going on in the world, man. It's just, there's so much negativity right now. And really what I try and do is just keep that perspective of gratefulness. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my life. Things could be way, way worse. I could be in a different country, but man, I was blessed, born and raised here in the United States with the greatest country and great friends, great family. How can I go? And then I guess this is a good perspective. How can I be ungrateful for when I've got so many things that are positive in my life? I always ask people this when I go down this gratefulness road. I mean, no matter what your situation is, if you knew somebody lying on your deathbed, or didn't even know someone's lying on their deathbed, and they've got hours to live, do you think they would drop what they did and trade situations for you, no matter what your situation is, whether you're, behind in your bills, whether you don't have a car, whatever the case is, no matter how bad the situation is, when you have that mindset to say that, hey, this is an opportunity for me to get out of this mess, to at least I have a chance, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is, throughout my life, I've gone through some tough times, filed bankruptcy, college dropout. I've switched jobs. I've left a relationship with the mother of my children. I've been through some tough times, but it's that mindset. It's the attitude of gratitude that Zig Ziglar always says that allows me to continue to work forward and learn from everything. I'm just lucky to be here and lucky to have my health really at the end of the day. So it's a great question. I appreciate you asking it.
No, the perspective is amazing to have. Do you have a specific practice that you do? Like for me, I always say 3 things that I'm grateful for every single day. That's just a practice that I do. I journal on that. Do you have a specific practice you use, or is it just something that you use as a daily mantra, if you will?
Well, a few things that I do that I think is extremely important. I think, and I think we might have talked about this when you were on my show. I don't remember, but the way I start my day and the way I end my day are crucial to how my day goes and how I start my next day. Because when I wake up in the morning, I have notes all over my apartment. I mean, literally, I have them all over. The one that's always looks at me right in my face is, you got yourself in this mess. How are you going to get yourself out? Every day is alcohol free because I had some alcohol issues in the past. There's all these little notes that I put around my apartment. And then I go through, just the things that I'm grateful for. And it's not like I'm doing it for hours or anything. It's 2-3 minutes. You know what? I'm lucky to have my car. I'm lucky to have my health. I'm lucky to have my children. I'm lucky to have money in the bank. I'm just fortunate with all these different things. And that only takes a few seconds. The next thing I do when I go through this little attitude of gratitude practice is then I just really sit in silence and I try and meditate. I'm not meditating for 5 minutes or an hour. It's really that 10, 15 minute range where I just gather my thoughts and really get prepared for the mind for the day, because how you start your day is one of the most important things you can do. You walk out and, we all know those people. You walk into an office and, you got Debbie Downer walking around with their head, they're bummed out from the day before, the week before, whatever the case is. But when you get your mindset right and you start your day off right, that changes the outlook for the rest of the day. And then the other half of that is really how I end my day. I end my day very, very similar. Attitude of gratitude. I'm thankful for this opportunity. What did I learn today? What do I need to do to get better? Because again, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. I think that's an old Jim Rome line, but it's so important to start your day off with attitude of gratitude and end the day with the attitude of gratitude, because no matter how bad my day goes, I don't take that day into the next day. I don't run it into it. And I think that's a mark of leadership. It allows you to grow faster, is that you don't allow the negativity to roll in from day after day after day. We all have bad days. I have bad days. I mean, I don't want to say all the time, but I got bad days. But at the end of the day, I ask myself, hey, what is this trying to teach me in this situation? How do I get better? And then what am I going to do tomorrow to make a big difference in someone else's life? When you have those things, that when you start your day and you end your day off, you sleep better, you get better rest, and sleep is so important. That's another big thing I do. I really focus on my sleep. I try and get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, because I think that just makes a big difference. I'm not a big hustle and grind guy. I'm not going to sleep 3 hours and work 21 hours straight. That's just not me. I think it's important to enjoy life and really, take care of yourself, take care of your mind, take care of your body, and then start and end your day with that attitude of gratitude.
One of the things you seem to be so open about and just completely vulnerable, which I think allows you not to have so much weighing you down. You talked about, hey, man, I had struggles with alcohol, so I cut that out. Or I got divorced from the mother of my kids. You're just open with that. And I think so often people don't do that. And so they're trying to look a certain way. You just own it, man. It's just, is that something that you've learned? Is that something that you grew into? Because I think so often people are trying to look a certain way instead of just being.
Well, you're exactly right. What has happened to me in my past has made me who I am today. And one of the reasons I do it, and one of the reasons I'm super authentic about it, because I know it's not easy, and I still struggle with it. Hey, I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy. And the alcohol stuff, I still struggle with it. I am just a normal, average dude. But I feel that the more I talk about it, the more I share with it, and the more other people reach out to me, it makes other people understand that their life doesn't suck that bad. I never try and compare myself to anybody else, because comparison is the thief of joy. When you start comparing yourself to someone else's life about how awesome it is and how beautiful it is, deep down, I don't want to say all the time, and I hope they don't, but a lot of times those people have major issues and major struggles that they're just trying to put this facade on. It's not worth it. It's not realistic. It's not real life. It's one of the coolest things that I've learned. And the reason I do it mainly is because of the conversations that I have after I'm very, very vulnerable, because most people don't know how to have that conversation with anybody, because they are putting that mask on, no pun intended, but they are putting that on. And it's very hard to have those conversations. But when I have a conversation with somebody, hey, I struggled, I've been there, I've done that, it allows them to lower their guard. And the conversations I've had with a lot of my clients, it's emotional, it's groundbreaking, it's owning things. And it allows you to understand that you have greatness within. You have to own who you are. Every situation that you've gone through in your life has brought you to this point where you are in your life to make you great. And I tell this too, and this is so important to me. There are people watching me constantly and how I reacted to certain situations. But the most important people that are watching me are my kids. How does my dad react to this? What does he say in this situation? Does he get upset? How did he handle these situations in his past? Because the older and older they get, chances are they're going to have the same situation. And I just feel truly deep down inside, the more you can get this stuff out, the more you can communicate and have deeper conversations, it allows you to grow, it allows you to be happier with yourself. I laugh a lot of this stuff off now because, it isn't that big of a deal. It's brought me to this point in my life that I've never been happier. I've never been more successful in my life. And I owe it to all my vulnerabilities. Vulnerability is my strength. And I would encourage anyone out there listening to this and to be vulnerable and, reach out to me, reach out to you and have these conversations, because the other part of that is it's hard to figure out who to have those conversations with. And so what we do is we hold that inside and we get bitter, we get angry, and we go down this negativity road. And it's just not worth it. Life is so short. Talk about the experiences. You are who you are. You've made the mistakes, grow from the mistakes, and talk about what you've learned from the mistakes, not just talk about the mistakes and how bad they sucked, because they have made you great. And they've gotten you out of those. You've gotten out of all those situations. So by being more vulnerable, it just sets an example for not only my friends and my family and my coworkers, and really for me, man. It just gives me a break to say that this life, I don't take it too seriously. I don't get upset. I just want to enjoy life, and I want to have weird conversations, and I want to be open and vulnerable and just grow and just enjoy every second of it, because you never know when it's going to be gone. That's what really scares me. The death is being on that deathbed, looking back and saying, hey, I wish I would have had that conversation. I wish I would have said that. I wish I would have tried that. It's just not me, man. I mean, I'm putting it all out there and I'm going for it. And obviously I know it helps people, and hopefully helps people on the show, because again, man, life is so short. You have greatness within, and all you got to do is just own it, own who you are.
Well, it certainly is going to help people. There's no question. I guess the question that's popping into my head is like, was this a process that you just evolved into, or was there a moment, this like really symbolic moment where you're like, boom, my life has just changed and I am just developing this whole mindset? Because again, you talk about your kids, and I'm sure they're learning lessons that you probably didn't have or you weren't equipped with as a child. But for you, was there this moment that just happened, or was this just a constant evolutionary process with your own life?
Well, it's, I'm 5'2". I'm 135 pounds soaking wet. My life has been very interesting from the time I was very, very young. I've got a bone issue where I've got these calcium deposits all over my body. I've had surgeries. I'm not the tallest guy. I've dealt with this. I don't know if it's, this self-consciousness that I really deal with in, about being the short guy there, and people staring. When I was younger, other kids staring at you, making fun of you. And I went through all that, and it was awful. And then when I was beating myself up, I was a miserable person, because I would own what other people would say about me. I guess that's probably where it started, was just really going through that process of becoming who I am today. And it's interesting, when I started my podcast three or 4 years ago, I really use it as it started out as just a diary, talking about all the things that I've gone through, and talk about it as a childhood, talk about, my height. And it's just so silly, but I use my height as an example for other people that can use maybe they're overweight. Maybe they don't look like they're supposed to look. Maybe they're too tall. Maybe there's whatever the thing is that you have in your own situation that you think society is really pointing at you and talking down to you. And it's easy to own those things, because a lot of times that's how you see yourself. You see yourself in a negative way. And the more and more you own that and understand the uniqueness of that, I can't change it. It is who it is. I am who I am. And I've really worked on that. And then I started the podcast, and I really talked about some of the depression issues that I went through. And I shared a lot of things. And then I had this message about 3 years ago from a listener. And that was probably one of the things that really changed my life. And it was just, it was from a relative of a listener. And she sent me this email and said that her brother committed suicide. By him listening to my podcast, it gave him another 3 or 4 months. If I can give someone 3 or 4 months, a day or 2 days, and just to have a thought process of the change in that mindset, and I can throw my ego out the window, check my ego at the door. Yeah. Hey, I've got some issues, we all have issues. I'm not the tallest guy in the world. I got all these problems. We all got problems. But man, if I can just be that beacon and share my vulnerabilities with other people and allow them to understand that it's common, probably. I think we all struggle with these things. But if I can get through it, anybody can get through it. If I can struggle through these things, if I can start a podcast and talk about these things, anybody can talk about it. If you are depressed, if you have these horrible thoughts, talk about it. Get it out of the way. And when you have messages like that, I mean, what else am I supposed to say? That's why I do the podcast. That's why I'm vulnerable. That's why I share this, because man, I still got my health. I still got beautiful kids. My life is good. I've struggled. And this is the other thing that's important about this, is that there are so many quote unquote gurus, these great coaches that are just, they can tell you how to solve the world and go through all these things. Most of them haven't gone through shit. They haven't been through anything. And if I can share that combination of saying, hey, I know what it takes. I know the situation you're in. I've been through that. Let's get through it together. And if I change one person's life, that's enough. I don't need to, hey, I want to save as many people as I can, but if I can save one person's or two people or three people, man, that's what life's all about to me. That's why I do the show. That's why I'm so vulnerable, because I want to change some lives. And I just want everybody to understand, again, I keep saying it, but you have greatness within, and allow yourself to walk into that greatness, and throw all that other bullshit and all the negativity out the window.
Well, so you start this podcast, and now it's got several 100,000 downloads, and it literally, you were just there to make a difference. And you, like you said, almost a diary to say, hey, this is what's happening. Is anyone else feeling this way? So you're sending this love out there, and it sounds like when you do that, you're getting as much, if not more, back than the listener. Does that kind of, I love this forum. It's one of my favorite forums, but was that the idea? And is that just, it's obviously grown and people really are tuned in now, which is awesome, but you're sending out this love, and it seems like you're getting so much more in return than anything you could even possibly give out, which is amazing.
Correct. And this is, I don't want to sound like a jack when I say this, but a lot of it's is very selfish for me. Because again, it's the things I share on the show and the things I talk about in my life with not even the show, just anybody I meet. Hey man, I'll just talk about stuff. It literally has allowed me to just I feel better about it. I feel like when I, and again, this sounds bad, but I don't want to make this all about me. But when I'm allowed to talk about it, I take this burden that's deep down inside, and I just feel so much better, man. And then when you have other people reach out to you. So I use it as a podcast version. But what I would encourage other people to do, it doesn't have to be a podcast. It could be a book. It could be a Facebook page. It could be you building something for somebody. Anything you can do to give back to other people, it's going to make you feel better. Jim Rohn says it the best. He says it, the more people you help to get to their goals, the quicker you're going to get to yours. And it is so true, because my goal was really to get my head right, to get my mentality right, because I didn't know where else to go. I didn't know who else to talk to. So I just talked to everybody. I just talked to everybody around the world. So what the hell? Who cares? But it's made me feel so much better about who I am and in my life, and more stable with what I look like. And I know it sounds so cosmetic, and the way you look, the way I look, it did affect me for a long time. But again, by talking this out and sharing the messages, it just makes me feel that I'm not alone. And I've had so many people reach out that have really changed my life. So, and again, I go back to the message that no matter what you're trying to do in your life, just share, just continue to share, and continue to help other people, because it'll come back tenfold. And it's so hard sometimes when you're in a dark place, and you're like, no one wants to hear my message. No one cares about what I have to say. It's just not true. It's just not true. People do care. And maybe you're not talking to the right people, and maybe starting a podcast, it would be a great way to do it. And this is a great little tip I got a while ago. When I started my podcast, one of the best advice I got was, hey, Jeremy, when you start your podcast, no one's going to listen. And I was like, what are you talking about? Why am I going to do a podcast then? But it's reality. No one listened for a long, long time, but it allowed me to just, it wasn't about trying to blow this message up or trying to get it out. It was about me trying to share positive energy and hopefully change one person's life. That's all it's about. So no matter what you're trying to do, just help other people. And the more you give, the more you get.
It actually is great advice. And I was listening to somebody, it was Jay Shetty and Lewis Howes, and they're talking about, we see these people on these, like Gary Vaynerchuk, or I don't know, another big one where, let's say Ed Milet, one of these big podcasts. Guys, that didn't happen overnight. That was something that they produced content for years. Jay Shetty put out for almost a decade videos before one hit. But the point wasn't to make money. The point was to send love out there. So I think it's great advice. My question to you is, because we're talking about some of the self-worth or some of the fears that we have, and we are our own worst critic, no question. What is your process when those fears creep up for you to say, you know what, man, forget that. I'm going to push through. That doesn't even exist for me. I'm going to do something. Is it as simple as just sending love out to the world, or do you have a specific process you follow?
Well, that's a very good question. This is probably not going to make a lot of sense, but it makes sense to me. Whenever I get in a funk, I just give it time. I sit in it, and I don't try and rush out and try and do something, because a lot of times, man, if I try and rush through, I think it's important to sit in that situation. Why am I going through this? What in my life has made me come to this point to be in this thought process? Sometimes I'll do a podcast and even talk about it, but I think we want to look so quick for an answer that it doesn't allow ourselves to work our way mentally through why we feel like that at that time. What did I do? What did I say? Is it just, is it just that? Am I just in a bad mood? Are things just tough right now? I really just sit in it. And that's like probably the worst advice anybody could ever say. But I do. I sit there in it. And the other thing I tell myself is that today I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to think about why am I like this right now? What do I need to do to get out of this funk? Another bad advice. Sometimes I just go to bed early. I think mentally, chemically, sometimes the body just isn't feeling right for whatever reason. So sometimes I'll just go to bed, and that's just really bad advice. But I mean, how often you get a good night's sleep and you wake up and you feel like $1,000,000? That happens to me all the time. But I just think when you are in a tough spot, we want to just analyze and reach out and watch a video and do this and do that. And we just get going through it so fast instead of actually just sitting in it and be like, you know what? Why am I like this right now? What am I so upset about? Do I have a right to be upset about something? And hey, that's legit too. I mean, let's just not, it isn't all rainbows and butterflies. You know, sometimes you have a bad day or someone says something that really pisses you off, but how are you going to react to it? And I do the same situation when if I get into a conversation that gets heated, I don't react right away. I sit back and just think about it. And, a lot of times it comes from love, and I just say, hey, I apologize. I'm sorry. I must have misunderstood. Help me help me understand better. And I do that to myself. Why am I in this situation? Why do I feel this way? How did I get myself in this situation? But I think it's important to sit in it. I think meditation helps. I think sitting in silence helps. If I'm really, really bummed out, one of the best places for me to sit in silence is in my car. I don't turn on radio, don't turn on podcasts, I don't turn on anything. I'll just sit and drive to wherever I got to go in dead silent, and just allow myself to think through the stuff. Because one of the issues I have especially when you're in a depressed state or in just confused or upset about something, is that we want to, like for me, what I used to do is go to social media and just search out stuff. And that's like the worst thing you could possibly do. We try and find the answer in somebody else or some other thing, and not realizing that every answer that we always need is already inside of us. But we don't give ourselves a chance to work our way through it, to find the correct answer that is the right answer for us. We use someone else's. And that's a lot of times that's not the best answer. We have all the answers within us. We just got to give ourselves a chance to actually figure those out. And by sitting in silence or going to sleep and just time, that works best for me.
Well, for me, brother, it's not bad advice. In fact, for those of you that are like, dude, I totally could go to sleep when it's a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. Instead of sending that nasty text, social media, phone call, just let it be. And it's amazing how it's not that big a deal the next morning. Why are so many people afraid to sit in silence? Because it's one of my favorite things to do, whether it's meditation or journaling, because any adversity we face, typically we learn something from it that helps us get better anyway. What do you think it is that most people are afraid of with being in silence, just with their own thoughts?
That's a really, really tough. The answer for that, I would say to that, is they are not happy with who they are. It's flat out. I just think they're afraid to face the situation that is going on in their lives. With when they're silent, they start thinking about how many bills they have, what kind of car they got, how big is my house, do I need to get a new pair of shoes? You constantly want to compare yourself to somebody else. And when you do that, man, it's just a wrong road to go down. I mean, I'm a minimalist, so I don't have a lot of things and I don't try and compare myself to a lot of people. But when you're alone in your own thoughts, there's no one else there but you. And I just don't think a lot of people like who they see. And again, I think you should face that person that you don't like to see, because that's how we grow. If you sit in silence and say, you know what, I don't like the person I've become, and this is why, I think they're scared of it. I don't think they know how to handle it. I think they're going to be worried about what the neighbors say, or your family says, or your friends say. I'm so worried about everybody else but me and my happiness. I love every once in a while you have one friend or one random person you know that they just completely disappear. They just like move out of state or something. I love those people, because I think those are the people that kind of figured stuff out instead of staying in their own little group. And again, there's so many areas with that. It's a religious groups. I was born and raised Catholic. You're afraid to say anything outside of the church. You're afraid to do anything different. It doesn't have to be religious. It could be sports. It could be anything. But when you're alone by yourself, you face the fears, you face the demons, and I don't think people know how to cope with them. That's how it turns into alcoholism. That's how it turns into drugs or overeating or buying things that you don't need. There's so many addictions out there nowadays, but I think that's where people need help. And I think I would assume you'd probably agree with this, is when you hit that wall, it's time to seek help. And I'm not saying psychological, like, and if you need a therapist, get a therapist. That's great. But I think it's a matter of finding a coach. We throw the word coach around so often, like, it's no big deal. And there are a billion coaches out there. And it goes back to that point that we talk about people that have never been through it. You can find a shitty coach, but there are so many people out there willing to help. You've got to step up and hire a coach, pay money for a coach. It sounds counterintuitive when you're talking about worrying about paying bills and all this stuff, but you need someone to call your shit out. You need someone to put you on Front Street. And if you don't ever do that and you hide behind the mirrors of the things you can buy, you're never going to get to the next level. You're always going to be miserable, and you can't be in silence because your head just goes 1,000 million miles an hour and you can't organize anything. You can't call yourself out. We are the best salespeople for ourselves because we saw all the reasons why we don't need to do any of that stuff. Hire a coach, spend money, even if you're in debt. It's, again, not the best advice, but I think it's great advice. Spend money to hire a coach, hire JM, hire Jeremy Todd, hire anybody you want, but find someone that fits along with your personality, that has similar interests, that understands the things that you've been through. When you put your money where your mouth is and you actually have someone holding you accountable, you all of a sudden, you don't. And again, this is important advice too. You're not looking for someone to take you from A to Z. You want someone to take you to A to B. Get on the right path. And when you do that, you'll all of a sudden start seeing small changes. You mentioned earlier with Jay Shetty, it took him 10 years. You're not going to be Mr. Perfect or Mrs. Perfect within a month. These things take time. They take time. But if you don't act now, another year goes by. And then you're like, damn, I wish I would have. I wish I would have done it a year ago. I wish I would have done this 6 months ago. Whatever the case is, you got to act now, because it's not going to get any better unless you take action. Another great quote, one of my favorite quotes of all time: the best time to plant a tree is now and 30 years ago, because you've got to plant it one. Now you've got to start. You've got to do and allow it to grow and allow it to become something. So that's what I would do. If you're talking about people being stuck in their own heads, put your money where your mouth is and hire a coach. That will change your life in a second.
It is funny because if you don't have that vested interest and you're not willing to spend money on yourself, you're not truly going to be vested and ready for what comes. But if you're scratching that check, I'll tell you what, you are committed to at least that degree, right? And that is great advice. Honestly, it is. And it's funny how it sounds counterintuitive to what we should be doing, but it's absolutely what they should be doing. I think it's so important. So obviously personal development is huge for you because you've mentioned Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn. These are two people that immediately you've quoted throughout. What was your journey into personal development, and do you still continue to do that today?
You know, I'll throw another quote out there. I think it was Zig Ziglar's quote. You know what? Motivation's like bathing. You got to do it every day or you start to stink. I do as much as I can every day. But you know, it changes. It changes. I think when it initially started, I read the book The Secret, and this goes way back. And you know, the book The Secret is great, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't actually. I mean, you can't sit in your house and just cross your fingers and say, I'm going to put out these thoughts and hope they come to you. That's not reality. That's not going to happen. But it was a great start. Then I read The Alchemist. Alchemist is one of my favorite books of all time. I recommend anybody for that. And it just, you know, again, it's just throw your energy out there with action and allow things to come to you and allow this, get out of your comfort zone, essentially. But I listen to, I listen to motivational stuff all the time. One of the guys I'm on right now is David Goggins. I love Goggins. I read his book, Can't Hurt Me. But I think it's also important not to just constantly doing motivation, inspiration stuff, because you get worn out. It starts to suck after a while. I think I just got from whatever that book thing, audio book, whatever it is. But I got Michelle Obama's book. I haven't started that. I'm not Republican or Democrat. I just thought it was interesting. I'd like to see her perspective. I think I told you this a while ago. I finished a book, Empire of the Summer Moon, about the Comanche Indians. I'm just trying to get as much information from different areas in my life to make myself a more well-rounded person, to hear different perspectives. And I listen to podcasts. I listen to your podcast. You mentioned Gary Vee. I listen to Joe Rogan. I got a friend, Dave Anderson. But there's so many podcasts. There's so much information out there. I turn my car into a classroom. Man, when I get in there, I'm getting motivated. I'm getting jacked up. I'm recommending this stuff to other people. I just can't listen to the same song over and over in my car 10,000 times. I know every single word to. That's not getting me anywhere. That's just, hey, I can repeat the same old bullshit, but I'm just trying to get better. I'm just trying to be a more well-rounded person and stay motivated, stay inspired, and take action. That's the biggest thing, is take action. I never focus on the results. I focus on the activity, and the more activity I can put forth, the more results I'm going to get.
So you opened up Pandora's box talking about these books, because I love reading. It's my favorite thing to share. It honestly is. And you talked about The Alchemist, which, if you get into his story, how much he failed to even get that book to be published, it's really incredible. But what are maybe 3 of the most impactful books that you read that really have shaped your thinking and really that people could pick up today? And maybe that's one of them. Maybe it is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Again, whatever book that really impacted you. You have your top 3 or so that got it.
Yeah. Goggins' book was great. I love that book. I also loved Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That book just allowed me to understand that I own everything. I own the situation I am. I am in the situation because of the decisions that I have made and nobody else. I'm not playing the blame game. They are what they are. I've also really enjoyed Mitch Albom. Mitch Albom, one of the books he wrote was Tuesdays with Morrie. And that book was one of those books that really it talked about life and how important life was and the stories. He is a brilliant author. He's probably one of my favorite authors of all time. The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, the Magic Strings of Frankie Presto was a great book. And they're just great stories about life. I love those kind of books. Good to Great, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. A lot of John Maxwell books. I love those. I still listen to John Maxwell's, I get the Minute with Maxwell every morning. I get that email to me. I listen to that every single morning. But a lot of it's just mindset, and a lot of it just really about life. And The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. That's probably one of my favorite books. That's the only book I've ever bought that I've given out to multiple people. And it's just life stories about becoming a better person and doing the right thing. And I think that, it sounds so silly, but we need to be reminded to do the right thing. I really believe that we need to be reminded to be a good person. We need to be reminded to help other people, because life gets so chaotic. And when we can slow things down with a good book with some good examples. What's that book by that young lady? Shoot, I got it in my bathroom right now. Shoot, I can't think of it. But there's so many good books out there. But I guess all those that I recommended, any John Maxwell book is going to be great. And Extreme Ownership with Jocko. I really like that. I recommend that to a lot of salespeople because salespeople have a major issue of just blaming everybody but themselves and why they didn't do this and why they didn't do that instead of owning it. And he's got a great podcast too, the Jocko podcast. That's a great podcast too. So I think at the end of the day, it all boils down to that. I mean, throw the excuses out the window. If you want to get better, you want to find a good book. There's so many great books out there. You just got to quit talking about it and take action and do it.
Well, that book is incredible, Extreme Ownership. And it leads me right into, I guess this will be my segue into what freedom is to you. What does freedom mean to you? Because again, if you read that book, we're talking about SEALs. We're talking about life or death, and they are the ones protecting our freedoms as Americans. So it is extreme, right? That whole idea. But what does freedom mean to you, Jeremy? What is that when I say that word? What's the visceral response for you?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that question. Well, really, real quick, my other favorite book is Let's Go Win. You've got to check it out. It's one of my favorite books of all time. don't ever forget that book. Freedom to me is really it's not financial freedom. It's mental freedom. It's doing the things that you don't care what anybody else thinks. That is a freedom that I don't think a lot of people have. If when I started the podcast, when I quit my 6-figure job years ago, I was told I was nuts. I was out of control. I had a family. You got bills. What about insurance? I mean, literally, I was told I was absolutely insane to do that from multiple people, close family members. They thought I was nuts. When I moved across the country multiple times, people thought I was nuts. But I was mentally free from the thoughts of everyone else telling me why I sucked, because I didn't care anymore. I've been through some brutal, we don't need to talk about it in this show, but I've been through some pretty bad times in my past. And that was my identification to myself. I identified myself with the tough times that I went through. I don't do that anymore. I identify myself with the person I am every single day to get better and help other people. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I truly say that from the bottom of my heart. It's not something that just happened overnight, but it's taken a long time. Again, we talk about it taking years and years and years. It's taken me a long time. So it ain't about financial freedom. It's not about freedom from anything else. It's mental freedom for myself, really, that I give myself the authority to make goofy decisions, to go after happiness, no matter what it looks like to anybody else. I give myself the authority to make myself happy. And that's okay. That's freedom to me, is freedom from the stigma, freedom from other people hating on you. I'm free. Like, I've never been so free in my entire life than what I am right now today. And I continue to get more free every single day, because I know what, the old saying is, the 2 most important days of your life, the day you're born, the day you find out why. I found out why when I started this message, this positivity message, to helping other people. I don't care what anybody else says anymore. I really don't. I just want to help people. I don't get upset about things. I just want to pass this on and change lives.
Such a powerful message, because even those closest to us, you even mentioned family members, they'll label us as Jeremy, that 10-year-old blah, or Jeremy, that this is what you are. But when you are able to say, nobody gets to label me, I am exactly who I choose to be every single day. I think so much value can be gained from that. And I hope people, when they hear this, they can say, you know what? It doesn't matter what mom or dad or brother, sister, best friends, whatever say. You get to choose that reality every single day. I love that message, brother. It's so key.
Well, it is key. And to be honest, hey, it's hurt a lot. When my immediate family members never listen to any of my shows. But it's funny now. Now they're all of a sudden starting to come around a little bit. It's great. I'll never forget, the first episode I ever did, I sent it out to like 50 people on my phone. And on there, I sat there, recorded it, and I hit send. And I just sat there waiting to get all the responses back. I had a few responses that were like, hey, this is great. And then I got the responses from like immediate family members, brothers, sisters, parents, best friends. Are you okay? What is wrong with you? Do you need help? This is crazy. You are wasting your life. You have a family. I mean, I got so many of them. I put myself on Front Street. But there was I keep throwing quotes out for some reason today, but what's that guy's name? It's a car guy. But anyways, he says, Grant Cardone, Grant Cardone always says the closer you get to your goals, the more and more haters you're going to have. I take that to heart. Well, I got a message the other day on Instagram it just said F you on it. I'm like, okay, thank you. I just laugh about it. It's hilarious, but it just doesn't affect me anymore, man. It just really doesn't. And what's funny is a lot of these people are starting to come back around because I haven't changed. This is the point that I learned a while ago. When you go out, when you take that first step to go for your goals and dreams, you have all the people that are never going to change in their entire lives. They are in their comfort zone forever. They are reaching to pull you back in. If you give up that goal, if you give up that dream, they're going to welcome you back in. See, I told you shouldn't have done that. You are so smart. That was such a good idea to quit. Yeah, that was cool. You did it. But, I'm glad you're back here in the comfort of all of our comfort zone. But when you go way, way out there and they're going to try and bring you back, but all of a sudden you don't respond, they slowly but surely start giving up on you and they go to the next person. They're going to start bringing the next person on because they know you're long gone. That's what happens when you go for your goals and dreams. It's hot at first. People will come out of the woodwork to tell you why you suck, but slowly but surely it always happens. They just fade away. And now, my family members coming around, but it's taken 4 years. It's taken a long time, but it's going to happen. And it's crazy when it happens, but knowing it's coming is that's a powerful weapon too, because you already know what's going to happen. And I would give you one other piece of advice to everybody listening to this is that the person that will hate you the most will surprise you the most, and it'll be one of your closest friends or family members. That I can guarantee you.
It is strange. And I think it's just their comfort level coming through. They want to protect you, even though that's not what you're needing. So what is the next scary thing down the line for you? What is that? What's the future look like, man? So you can scare the heck out of everybody else moving forward. Yeah, you're doing big things. You continue to grow your podcast. It brings such a positive message. Do you have the 5-year, 10-year plan? Do you know what's next?
Well, I have a book coming out soon, and it's Vulnerability is My Strength. And there's something in the book. Well, I'll talk briefly about it. I've never said this on any other show before, so hopefully all my friends and family are quit listening to this by now. But when I was 12 or 13 years old, I was sexually abused by another kid, and that's going to go in the book. And I say that off the cuff because I think other people need to hear that message as well. And it wasn't by a family member, so I don't want. And that happens too. It was a friend, and I think about looking back in my past and how that shaped my relationships and my feelings about myself. But I really want, I talk about that. You talk about being vulnerable and throwing that out there. It's so important that there's so many people out there that won't talk about it. I think they need to. So slowly but surely, when this book comes out and my family and friends from my neighborhood, from the city that I grew up in, read that, I'm a little concerned about the reaction I get. Now, and I put that in there, and I feel like I'm confident enough now to talk about it because I am secure enough with who I am. I am comfortable with who I am. I don't care about what anybody else thinks, and me doing that goes to show that I really just don't care. But the reason I do it is because I know there are people out there across the country, especially with child trafficking right now, sex trafficking right now, that this is a real thing. And I think it needs to be talked about more and more and more. So I share a little bit of that in my book. It's a small part of the book because I don't know. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to talk about it. It's what I felt comfortable with. It's what I want to talk about. But I share it. I talk briefly. And it's interesting. I even put in the book that I talk about, I don't know how to react still to it. Was I in the wrong? Were they in the wrong? It's just so weird. It's just the strange concept to wrap my head around because there's no right or wrong answers. It's what I conceive is the answer. No one can tell me like, oh, you were right or you were wrong. I don't want anybody else's advice, but it's something else that I live in my head. And I've thought about it for 29 years and never said anything to anybody ever. Not one time. And I'm putting on the book. So talk about the next big thing. That's a big thing that, hey, I hope this, it goes back to the other thing you were talking about earlier, the selfish part of it. I hope it changes lives, and I'm sure it will. I understand I get the impact of what I'm saying, but selfishly for me, it just allows me to get it out. That I think almost like that's the last. I'm sure there's more skeletons in the closet, but that's a big ass skeleton. You know what I'm saying? So that's a big ass skeleton that's coming out of the closet, and it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what this does and see how this changes. And it may be nothing. I don't know, but selfishly, it was for me. So that's the next biggest thing that's going to go on in my life. So there you go.
Well, it is it's obviously huge. And again, Lewis Howes, he did say this about 7 years ago, something similar in his childhood. And he just speaks to it. The chains were broken. He was free. He truly felt independent and free of this burden that he had carried around for so long. So hopefully that is something for you, brother. And like you said, for others that may have suffered something like that they're ashamed of, or they need to get it out. So no question, something great will come from it. How can listeners connect with you online, brother?
Well, the positivesidepodcast.com. You can always go to the website. You can check the Positive Side Podcast. It's everywhere. Search Jeremy Todd everywhere. It's easy to come up. I mean, I'm pretty much out there now. You can find me anywhere. Email me. Hey, Jeremy@jeremytodd.com. I respond to all my emails, and it's me. I think that's, especially because I get some deep ones, man, and I respond to all those. But I'm on Facebook. You know how it is, man. I'm everywhere. I appreciate you. I appreciate you letting me be on your show, dude. I love it. And I'm glad we connected a while ago. So it's been awesome, brother.
Well, for me as well, man, what you bring out to the world, the mindset and perspective that you have, so many more people, I hope they continue to gravitate towards it. So I love what you do, man. I keep doing great work. And thank you so much for being on the show, brother. It was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, you guys, until next time, go ahead and go to letsgowin.com. Check out the positive work-life balance assessment form, something that I use every single month just to check in, make sure I'm completely in alignment in all areas of my life. And in the meantime, until then, transcend in life. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to transcendinlifepodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.